This evening's reading from Living Wisely, Living Well by Swami Kriyananda, April 29th. Let others feel your support in their worthwhile undertakings. Even if they do something of which you don't approve, let them feel your support for what they are. This is something so important, not only in life, but especially on the spiritual path. We might understand perhaps why it might be important for others to feel our support, how it could help them, but how does it benefit us? You see, when we, as Swamiji has written elsewhere in this book, when we encourage others, when we ourselves work to encourage others, we find encouragement coming to us from the very universe, he says. We find that support. You see, it is, on one level, it's our very nature to want to share, to want to give, to want to help open-heartedly. You see this in children sometimes, how very young children will come and bring a gift to you, or they'll offer you something, of their own, their toy or their snack, or they'll want to share. They'll just hand it, even though it may not be something you'd be interested in also eating with them. Still, it's a very sweet gesture that we see again comes before the ego has developed or become too in the forefront. Also, the channel, as Master said, is blessed by that which flows through it. And so if kindness, if encouragement flows through us, then that also brings blessings to us. And also it's ennobling. It is also uplifting. It helps to refine our own nature by generously sharing, by generously giving. In this case, again, our encouragement, as Swamiji said, let others feel your support, not just hear your support. Just saying, yeah, good for you, go ahead, good luck to you. But actually feeling that in the heart, offering that feeling, offering those prayers. Sister Gyanamata, Master's most advanced woman disciple, was so in tune with him that even when she was on the other side of the country, she would write to him saying, I felt your healing vibrations coming to me at 10 a.m. This morning. And sometimes he would write to her saying, I will be praying for you on this day at this time. And she could feel that. And so even if people are not fully conscious of what you're sending, still, it can benefit them to receive those prayers, especially as we are praying for God to bless them. And so again, there are many benefits to us. But in terms of seeing this in action, for me, the greatest example of expressing encouragement and consciously emitting it to others was Swami Kriyananda. And we've been talking a lot about Swamiji in recent days. Just a few days ago or a week ago was his Moksha Day, the day he left the body, April 21st, 2013. And Yoganandaji had said to him, you will find God in this lifetime. And so whatever that meant on April 21st, 2013, when I say whatever that meant, I mean, was it the last day of his life? Was it the last years of his life? Was it the last 20 years of his life? In any case, when his physical life ended, as Master said, he had found God. So it's thrilling to contemplate. But so in these weeks here in Ananda Chennai and in others of our centers around the world, we've been celebrating Swami Kriyananda, and we will continue in this way leading up to May 19th, which is his birthday. I thought to share with you tonight a few letters of encouragement that Swamiji wrote over the years to people. He wrote many such letters, and a few hundred of them, have been published in a book called In Divine Friendship. And I believe it's available for sale on Kindle, which is the major way. The e-books that we're getting these days is the only format we can easily get now. Excuse me. So you might get this book if you don't have it. There's another book of his letters also called Letters to Truth Seekers. This was, you could say, volume 1 of Letters of Spiritual Counsel that he had published. So here is one letter from Swamiji to someone who was feeling guilty. Dear so-and-so, don't let yourself feel guilty about anything. If people knew all the things they'd done wrong over countless lifetimes and allowed themselves to feel guilty about them all, they'd be unable to bear the burden of existence itself. But bear it they must, anyway. As Sri Yukteswar said, forget the past. The vanished lives of all men are dark with many shames, but everything in future will improve if you are making the right spiritual effort now. We can't ever really fail anyone but ourselves, and we can't fail ourselves either if we keep on steadfastly moving in the right direction, upward toward God. And this was something that Swamiji emphasized again and again. First, this quote of Sri Yukteswar's, which appears in Autobiography of a Yogi. Incidentally, Master said this was his own favorite line from Autobiography of a Yogi. His own book, but his guru's words. Just forget the past and make the right spiritual effort now. And Swamiji encouraged us again and again, saying, see that your progress is directional. Are you moving in the right direction? And even if someone seemed to be moving down, he would say, well, even when climbing a mountain, sometimes you end up going down for a little bit before going back up again. And if you've ever gone hiking or climbed a hill, or you see that that does in fact happen. And it's such a joy to get to those parts where you can finally either level out or even walk down before going back up. On the spiritual path, it's not such a relief, actually. But still, that's how we should look to ourselves. Am I doing better than I used to be? And when I say used to be, means look at how we were doing 10 years ago. That would be a good frame of reference. Of course, in this we're talking about encouraging others. It can be very helpful to encourage others, because not only will you draw the universe's encouragement, as I said, but also we will end up being in the practice of encouraging others, in the habit, I should say, which then ends up translating to ourselves. We end up encouraging ourselves as well. If we have a tendency to be critical of ourselves and be too hard on ourselves, then we may find that, well, after all, I was just encouraging this person in that. Maybe I should also just encourage myself and not just get so down on myself about this particular problem. As Swamiji said, if we were down on ourselves about all the problems we have and have had, we would be down as far as you could go. And so what's the point? It doesn't actually accomplish anything. It just gives us a sense of having done something just if we feel guilty. But guilt is no proof or justification. Positive action and probably a sense of humor are what are required. Here is another letter on some suggesting how to find lasting contentment. Swamiji writes, Dear so-and-so, contentment is an attitude to be deliberately practiced. It is not simply a state of mind that comes to one once things are going well. That sort of happiness can be lost in a second, under the least setback. Contentment, however, if practiced determinedly, can remain with us under every circumstance. Good company, too, is important. Without it, contentment may be too difficult to practice steadfastly. If you could mix with contented people, you would automatically begin to acquire their magnetism and to grow in contentment yourself. That is why I have urged you to take your next vacation at Ananda. You would like it here, I'm sure. With love in God and Guru, Swami Kriyananda. I'd like to share another one with you. Dear so-and-so, I'm sorry to hear about your discouragement. It is the negative side of humility to feel inadequate, to doubt one's abilities. You have much humility, and the humbler we are, the better God can work through us. It is right and true to recognize one's own fallibility. God's is the only true strength and guidance. Only egotists glory in their own cleverness and ability. In so doing, they shut God out and, in the end, fail. But there is another side of humility, too. To feel inadequate is one thing, but to feel badly about it, or to take too personally other people's criticisms, is possible only because, despite your humility, there is some ego involvement present. Otherwise, you would feel joy in your own nothingness and God's everythingness. Give it all to Him. The more you do so, the more you will find Him using you in everything. I think He has given you these tests for you to learn these lessons. And the more we find joy in ourselves and calmness through meditation and serving others, the more we lose that personal sense of self-involvement. This person said this to me. This person did this. How does it affect me? I didn't like what that person said to me yesterday, and so I'm going to be a little bit, I'm not going to listen to anything they say today. We all have people that rub us the wrong way, probably because they reflect to us something we see in ourselves. This is in fact what the masters say. But Master went so far as to say, remember, if you see anything wrong with the world, it's wrong in you. It's quite a statement. I don't think he was referring to, if you see murder in the world and you think it's wrong, it's not wrong, it's wrong with you. It's not that. But if we judge it, if we hate it, if we react, if we say it shouldn't be, in the sense of on the cosmic level, we have to trust God in these things. But that's a hard lesson to explain, especially in the negative 2 minutes remaining to me. But in terms of a simple thing where we don't like something, that's an easier place to practice it. 2 guidelines Swamiji gave us for that. For example, if somebody who tends to bother us then is making a suggestion, he gave a very wise piece of advice. Always consider the merits of a suggestion regardless of its source. And so if somebody who we tend to not want to listen to makes a suggestion, rather than just, you always say that, or, oh, there you are again, just don't consider the source, just consider what's being offered. It makes things very fair-minded, and makes us fair-minded anyway, and may also keep us listening when God is using that exact person to tell us something. Another suggestion he gave is, especially for those working on overcoming the ego, he said, I can't remember the words exactly, but never accept the thought that you deserve better treatment from anyone. That key phrase, you don't deserve better treatment, that's one I've had to repeat to myself at different times, moments of irritation or impatience or whatever. Just all it comes down to is I am desiring better treatment. And suppose we get it, then as Swamiji says, we become contented because of our dependence on that better treatment. And as soon as the better treatment is withdrawn, then we end up just unhappy again. On the other hand, if you mix with spiritually minded people, like we're doing even right now online, it helps to uplift us, and it keeps us in generally a healthy atmosphere where people are encouraging each other. And then when we suddenly go into a different kind, it seems foreign, unusual, and kind of allows us to keep a little distance from it. I was talking to someone on the phone the other day, and they were very rude. And it was, in a way, first it was surprising because I just wasn't used to that kind of conversation. And in an odd way, it was kind of refreshing. Just, well, how about something different for today's menu? And it was a good reminder to me that why should anybody treat me a certain way, no matter how I wasn't being rude to the person. I was doing the best I could to be polite. But again, sort of like a bracing, stiff drink of cranberry juice or something that's not very pleasant to swallow. I mean, unsweetened cranberry juice, which I don't know if you can even find these days, but lest I get into a whole philosophical discourse on lockdown and the merits and demerits thereof. To come back, I will say, supposing we have some bitter drink, some Ayurvedic medicine, woof! It's on the one hand, it can be tough to swallow, and then on the other hand, you feel somehow stronger as a result. There was a funny episode where this very tough guy he was a strong warrior, and people were asking, what is your favorite drink? And he just said, I don't have any favorite drinks. I don't go in for all that nonsense. And so the bartender offered him prune juice. And so I don't know if you've ever drank prune juice, but he took a sip of it and looked at it and said, a warrior's drink. And so sometimes you do. You feel tough for having gone through something that wasn't pleasing at first. Remember what Master said, whatever is pleasing to the ego is displeasing to the soul. And what is ever displeasing to the ego is pleasing to the soul. Okay. All right. And here's another one. Dear so-and-so, this was to a friend of Swamiji's. I was interested in what you wrote about my song, Life Flows On Like a River. I think I felt somehow you didn't like the song. I didn't want to embarrass you, but it seemed to me right for you to express your true feelings and not be diplomatic about them. As I recall, my delight was in your expressing them fairly and not unkindly. This was, to me, a breakthrough for you in expressing friendship. I was happy for that reason. What did the song matter? You see, so that, though encouraging, that was also a bit stronger, perhaps, than I know that if I read that letter directed at myself, I would certainly find my heart rate going up. You see, Swamiji, though he encouraged us, he never encouraged us in our weakness. He never encouraged us in our egos. And when he saw that we were able or open to possibly growing, then he would give us a more direct statement. He would give us a stronger push. And if he found that gentle encouragement was not getting through, he would speak more strongly for our sake. It was never out of impatience. It was never out of frustration. It was basically inviting us to meet him, I can't say at his level, but certainly at a higher level than we were on. And so, again, one could always feel or try to feel, if one, speaking personally, once you got over the shock, could feel his kindness behind that. And even if not in that moment, one could extrapolate all the kindness that had come before must also probably be behind this. I mean, even the logic of the ego could accept that, even if its feelings were hurt in the moment. And so again, I don't recommend necessarily that we take this course right away in encouraging others. I'm just saying it to you for your own good. If it displeases you, it only displeases your ego. It pleases your soul. You have to be very careful before you can speak on that level. And also, as Master writes of Sri Yukteswar's advice in the in Autobiography of a Yogi, how Sri Yukteswar would criticize the disciples, and others of his disciples took to the same habit, not the same habit, the same action. And but then Master writes that these same devotees took sudden flight as soon as Sri Yukteswar unloosed a few arrows of criticism in their direction. And Master says, he who goes on the offensive must not be defenseless. And so there's another common phrase, if you dish it out, you'd better be ready to take it also. And so for this reason, one has to be quite careful. But if you can really feel calmness and kindness in your heart, and if you feel the sanction from God, then maybe you do say something. But again, it never hurts to wait a little bit longer and a little bit longer after that. This is also, though, partly a matter of personality and preference. Some people are stronger in their speech, sharper, even a little more fiery, and fire is one of the elements, and it gets things done. But again, the way you'll know, as Swamiji said, whether a particular action of yours is right or rightly timed, because it may be the right thing to say, but at the wrong time, which in fact makes it the wrong thing to say. You'll know if it was right by if your actions generate harmony. Now, that means the true form of harmony, people harmonizing on a soul level. Of course, if you just try to please someone all the time, they'll feel very harmonious. But you'll see in time that actually even that generates disharmony. Even if we try to cater to people on a lower level, on some level, higher level of their awareness, they resent it. I'm not a baby, don't pat me on the head all the time. Or they'll come to disrespect you, not holding you in respect, because they can feel, in a certain sense, you're talking down to them. Or even if not, you're just keeping them at their present level, which they don't want to be at. Again, nobody in this world owes anything to anyone. No one owes us anything. We don't owe anyone anything either. But it is to our great benefit if we work to encourage others. Because again, as Swamiji said, the very universe will come to our aid. So, God bless you, and thank you for joining us.